Alright guys, well just kind of going to show you how I fixed the other side, and I thought I'd take you through the steps on taking this entire thing apart. So this is my 73 Blazer. Had been sitting for I think almost 28 years was the last time that the tags were registered. It said it ran when parked, but when I picked it up, I put it up on my lift, and lo and behold there was a nice big hole in the block, so it might have ran for a second. But being sitting for so long, there's been some other things. I got it running after I built another motor for it, and I was having some issues with binding. So I'm like, oh, well, bearings and stuff. So I took the other side apart, rebuilt the bearings, and then I learned that the caliper was frozen and broken. Wouldn't compress, wouldn't do anything. And so I have a parts truck out back that was a 77 or 78, I believe. Still a round eye. And so I'm like, oh, well, I'll just change the calipers out because I knew that one had new calipers. So I took the other one off on that side, and it was not the right thread. So my 73, these ones here, had a fine standard thread, bigger bolt pattern, whereas my new caliper here, had a fine thread one, or excuse me, a metric coarse thread. And so my new caliper had a bolt this size right here, and it was, 1.5 pitch, and the other one was standard in fine thread. You can see parts of it right here. And so we decided to put it up on a lathe because I didn't want to get new calipers. I'm trying to do this on the cheap. And so we put it back up on a lathe. We kind of ground down some of the material, and then we just went through and threaded it with a 1.5 pitch fine thread, and it wound up being exactly perfect. And the reason I did that is because my brake lines, I have new ones as well, they're this same diameter right here. And with them being this diameter, this little guy had a little bit too much play inside, and I didn't want to have any risks of, leaks or anything like that. And so we decided to machine down the old one to where it's still nice and firm in there. Kind of cool. It worked out really well. I was hoping that it would, but it turned out to be just perfect, and it sticks out more than enough for it to bite, so there's no concerns about, not enough thread or anything like that, and there was still plenty of material. And so, little side note for you guys, if you can't find parts or you're trying to do things on the cheap, this worked out being pretty well. We just measured, mic'd it, kind of ground down just a couple, and then we went through and just with the regular tap and die set, went through and redid it. And so, turned out to be pretty good. And I think it's going to work. But stay tuned. I'm going to go ahead and show you guys the whole process for taking this apart. I'm going to be replacing this entire caliper unit. I'm going to be replacing, the caliper. I'm going to be replacing this whole hub, pulling all that stuff out, taking the axle shaft out, cleaning it up real good, and prepping it to be put back in so that everything's just kind of nice. Hope this helps you guys in your videos working on. I hope this helps you guys working on your own rigs, whether it be anything with the Dana 44 like this, any kind of square body, or just inspires you to work on your own stuff. Stay tuned. Little side note for you guys, if you notice that little washer in there, it goes in one way, but it's kind of a little bit of a pain to get out. And so, little trick for those of you guys that haven't figured out, the snap ring pliers work really good. If you just go in here, you can see, I'll just go in here like this and I'll grab it. You can grab and kind of start yanking on it, and it can release it pretty easily in most cases. So kind of little side trick here, getting it in there. Obviously my snap ring pliers aren't the biggest. If you have longer ones, it works a little bit easier, but you just kind of work it just a little bit here and a little bit there, and soon enough you'll have it out just like that. And then I always, just because I hate trying to reach it and finagle it, I always just get my little magnet and pull it out. But comes out nice, pretty good like that. I'm going to go ahead and pull this other nut off, axle nut off, and then I should be able to take the caliper off. All right, now they make a tool specifically to take these axle nuts off, but I lent it to a buddy of mine and he hasn't returned it yet. So I'm just going to show you another way that you can do it. Because these aren't supposed to be torqued down super tight, and you'll see that when I put it back together. It's supposed to be, you get it a little bit of tight, you spin it, and then you just kind of, and I'll show you that process, but you can actually get them off with a flat tip screwdriver or some other kind of a tool. And again, the right tool does make it quicker and easier and more efficient, and I do have it, but sometimes you lend tools out to people and they take a little while to get them back, and so you're just going to kind of make do with what you got. So flat tip does a pretty good job. Again, it just kind of takes a little bit of time here, but it's not the worst thing in the world. And what I actually might wind up doing is I'm going to unbolt the caliper and all of that stuff, because like I said, well, that's a little bit tight on the end. I'll have to look at those threads. Might have some gummed up threads right there. That might not be a good thing. And that's another thing, is when you pull this stuff off, it's always good to inspect it really, really good. Make sure that, you know, everything is as it should be. The threads aren't super gummed up, because that always is just a problem down the road, and a problem you definitely don't want to have, because these things are meant to be serviced, and the longer they're serviced, the longer they're in service, the better, in my opinion, because you can't beat these old vehicles. They have so much more personality, character, and just grit. I think they just represent grit. You know, our vehicles today, they have no personality. They're kind of like snowflakes. A lot of the people that just can't do hard things, that's what a lot of the vehicles I think are today. Whereas you put some of these vehicles on the road and they could just go anywhere. Kind of awesome. All right, now we should be good. Get my magnet, pull it on off. Now we're in good shape. Now I'm going to go ahead and take the caliper off, so I'll show you guys that process, and then we'll be able to pull the whole spindle. Okay, these bolts right here are what are holding the caliper on. So you got one down here and one up here. These ones I'm actually not going to be reusing, because I got some better ones from my donor vehicle that use a hex, and I'll show that to you. But everything's just in better shape on that vehicle, and this one just had a little bit of rust and oxidization. And so I wanted to show you one of the processes that most people know this trick. Instead of hammering on your hands up here, like, you know, hitting your hands with a hammer like so, you can just set up another wrench on it and provide yourself with a little bit of extra torque multiplication, just like this. You see I got a second wrench up on here like this, and I'll show you better on the bottom one. But it just kind of really loosens it super nice, and then you can let the wrench do the rest of the job. Kind of handy. Now, since this is all original stuff, I will definitely keep these bolts, because I mean, you can clean them up, dress them up real nice, and save them as a parts. And it's always good to have things like this handy, because you never know when stuff starts to go to crap and you have old stuff and they stop manufacturing things. It's always good to have backups. So I'll definitely keep these. Just gonna set it up on my lift. Okay, I'm gonna go ahead and show you down here on this one how I set up my wrench, for those of you guys that have never done that. And again, wrenching on vehicles for a long time, a lot of people figure stuff out and ways to make their lives easier. And this is just a trick that took me a long time to learn, but I'm glad I know it now, because then it saves my hands. When you become old, you get that arthritis and other problems, and then you're just brushing with a toothbrush causes all kinds of pain. So anyways, you get this end just here like this, and you set this in here, and you just kind of come around like so, and then you just hook in, and it just gives you a little bit more leverage. Let physics do the work, not you. And so I'll be doing that with this bad boy here real quick, and get it on there, and then you just pull and it breaks it loose. And then you can set your other extra wrench down and then get back to it. Now I'm gonna test and just see if this caliper is busted. To be on the safe side, I'm gonna replace it with the other one, just because I went through all the effort of making a new bolt. But I'm gonna test this and see if this piston compresses. And it looks like it's compressing, so that's a good sign. Well, it's not going in very far, but it is compressing. So that lot of crap is coming out, like not good stuff. This one's compressing, so I'm actually gonna go ahead and keep this piston, excuse me, I'm gonna go ahead and keep this caliper as a backup. I might refurbish it, and I'm gonna see if I can buy a rebuild kit for the other caliper, just because they don't make parts like they used to, and sometimes it's nice to have OEM stuff. So I'm gonna go ahead and keep that just to be on the safe side, but I'm gonna go ahead and work this out. Sometimes you need a little bit of help with priage, and so I'm just grabbing my screwdriver here, and I'm just kind of working it out a little bit at a time. This side I knew was working a little bit better than my other side. My other side was genuinely frozen, but this one's doing okay. So went ahead and got it off, came off real nice, so that's good. And I'll just go ahead and set that off to the side over here on my cart. Okay, so this is ready to be removed, and there's a little bit of it's like a dust shield, but it's also there for this little automatic spring, this little spring to push against. There's a little, kind of like a dust shield. It kind of protects the bearing behind it. And so you want to make sure that when you put this back together that you put it back in the right way so that spring has something to sit against and the bearings have something to be protected by. The bearing is next, and you can kind of move this around to get it loose and then just kind of grab a hold of it. This might be a little too heavy for my rinky-dink cheap magnet, but this is definitely an OEM bearing, and it's kind of nice. It looks like it's in pretty good shape. We'll see. I have other stuff to use for it, but I might go ahead and clean them up and reuse them if they're in good shape, but we'll know that more when we take it apart. Let me go ahead and remove this, but I'm going to go ahead and take this off and kind of show you when you pull straight out. The other bearing is right here on the back side, and right here on this back side, and it's in not the best shape. Matter of fact, it looks like there's pretty jacked up stuff in there. We'll take that apart and look. But again, that whole unit is going to be thrown away. But this gives way to this dust shield. And I have a new dust shield. Well, by new, I mean this one's a 73 and I have a 77 dust shield that I've cleaned up and did the old spray paint restoration on it. But I'm going to go ahead and remove this, show you that process, so we can kind of look and inspect things underneath, and we're going to pull that axle shaft out. So stay. Okay, so from a little bit of automotive archaeology, looks like somebody's tried to get up in here. So if you look right here, you can kind of see that it's not quite as straight as this side. So somebody's tried to get in here and move stuff without realizing how to actually take things apart. So I'm going to need to get in here and massage this down in order to get to these bolts or these nuts down here. So I'm going to first start the easy way and just kind of start prying a little bit just to see if I can get any kind of headway and get access to these nuts. Ooh, easy there. Because, again, I'm not worrying about fixing this one. I'm just worried about making sure I can get it off. Because that's kind of the, aha, sweet. All right, we're in good shape. I'm going to go ahead and take this off now. I figured out what's wrong. If you notice, just down here, right there, there's a little hidden bolt. Of course, what an amateur. I'm gonna go ahead and remove that real quick. If memory serves, I believe that it is, yep, 7/16. Comes off real nice when you actually do it the right way. Go ahead and put that down. Okay, now we're actually at where you can take the whole front part of the spindle and get access to the axle. So I'm going to move my camera, kind of show you that. Okay, removing this is actually not super difficult. With this being all super oily, you can grab like a rag to grab a hold of it, but I mean, I'm already a hot mess, so we're just gonna go ahead and send it. But you go ahead and kind of just pull nice and easy. Oh, it looks like the axle shaft is trying to come with it. So you pull this nice and off. This gives you access to everything. And looks like that dust shield is a little bit worse for wear. We'll take a look at that. There's needle bearings on the inside of here and a bearing setup, and you want to kind of make sure to look at that too. And don't neglect that with grease. So we'll go ahead and pull this off. Then we'll set our nice little dust shield. I'm going to keep it on here just because I know myself and I'll forget where I put it. But you can kind of just massage and pull this out, and then the axle comes out nice and easy. Just kind of nice and slow. And with this being the passenger side, it is a stubby shaft, so it's not very long. But you kind of look at everything, clean it up real good. Check out these U-joints, make sure they're nice and crisp. Clean it up. I'm going to do another Rust-Oleum restoration on this to make it look good and polish this turd up real nice. And I'll go ahead and show you guys videos of me doing that. Alright, so to clean off the surface, I use this nice wire wheel with my trusty dusty Harbor Freight orbital. And I've learned a lot of lessons with this wire wheel. This type of wire wheel is amazing. I use it to clean a lot of things, but safety squints don't cut it, because this definitely likes to let them loose, and they like to implant into your body. So I've learned that the hard way, and I definitely wear actual safety glasses. So definitely a recommendation when you guys use this. Maybe respiration might be advised, especially if you're in an enclosed spot. I'm in Utah where it's cold as crap right now, and my garage is shut, so I'm pretty sure I have asbestos and all kinds of other things. Okay, well, I got the parts GE good enough, and I'm going to go ahead and use what I'm using for my caliper to clean it up, just because I had some extra, and we'll see how long it lasts. But it is kind of nice because it has a little bit of ceramic in it. And again, I normally do other Rust-Oleum stuff, but we'll go ahead and see how this stuff goes because I still have a little bit left. I'm going to go ahead and spray all this, kind of get a little bit in here as well, make it kind of dolled up just a little bit. The ball joints and everything are in great shape, so I'm not going to mess with those. And I'll eventually put in new tie rod ends and everything on later, so I'm not worried about that either. But I'm just going to go ahead and clean that up and show you. Well, you know, as they say, polish a turd, it's still a turd, but I'm all right with that. It's going to definitely do for now. This is a flat finish, so it will eventually dry and kind of give me a little bit more of a matte finish. And I'll show you what the other side looks like because I kind of did that already. I'm going to go ahead and let this dry, and then I'm going to start putting it back together and show you that process.